Silly YouTube, I hope that this video finds you guys doing well. As you guys know, as a New Zealander living in France, I like to collect new and fresh experiences about life in France. And boy, did I collect an experience recently about driving in France. I mean, I've driven in France a little bit here and there before, but this time was different because it was just my friend and I, two Kiwi girls out on the open road without a French person to guide them. And I think I did about 800 to 900 kilometers throughout Normandy, Brittany a little bit, and then back into Paris. I'll get onto the Parisian driving a little bit later, but there were definitely some things I noticed that were a bit special about driving in France. So these are a few of the things that I experienced that made me be like, whoa, okay. So the first thing driving in France is how fast you can go. And I know if you're German watching this, you'll be like, whatever, we don't even have speed limits. But I was driving 130 on the open highway and I've never felt so badass. It was so cool being able to drive 130 and it be completely legal. The speed limit's 100 in New Zealand, so I was like, yeah, it was so much fun. But I also noticed in France there are so many different speed limits, my gosh. Like for us, it's like pretty much 50 in small towns, 100 on the open roads, done, you know? And in France, it's kind of like 30 kilometers in densely populated areas or around schools and that kind of thing, or 50 kilometers if it's just a small town, but you don't see a 30-kilometer sign. Then as you go in and out of the town, it may be 70 kilometers on the open road, 90 kilometers if it's more sort of motorway style, 110 kilometers, and if it's really open highways, 130 kilometers. So you've always got to keep your eyes out for the different speed signs. And yeah, cruising at 130 feels good, not gonna lie. So open road driving was absolutely fine, but it was the driving around the cities that was a little bit crazy. So Paris was something else. Like in Normandy, for example, we went to Rouen. I'm never gonna be able to say the name of that city. And even in these big metropolitan cities, I mean, they weren't built with cars in mind. So you've got lots of small streets, a lot of one-way streets. Some of the streets are two ways, but there's no way that two cars are getting down that street at the same time. And this impacts not just like the general stress of driving around the cities, but the parking as well. The parking's absolutely crazy. It's like every man for his life. You can park in the most bizarre places. A lot of people park up on the pavement. And if you're in a street, you'll see many different cars parked on the street. And some of them are facing, you know, like one way, and some of them are facing another way. And the parking spaces are very small and tight, and you have to be an excellent parker in France. I'll give you that. You can park your car into a space that's literally the width of your car. Like you had to actually touch the car behind you to get into the space. Like that would never happen in New Zealand. If you touch someone else's car, you die. Like you do not touch other people's car. Another thing I noticed is that there's so many roundabouts when you're driving in France. My gosh, it's like roundabout obsession, just constantly slowing down for roundabouts on big open roads between every town. They're absolutely everywhere. I think, you know, the town planners in France, they love themselves a good roundabout. Another thing that I wasn't expecting were the tolls. You have to pay to drive on the roads in France, and you have to pay quite a lot actually, like stopping, and you know, you take a ticket sometimes at one toll booth, or you give them your credit card, or both. And I think doing the trip around Normandy over 4 days, I think we ended up spending about 40 euros or something like that just on tolls. And don't do what I did, which is, you know, up above there are two different types of lanes. There are lanes for the people who are like the locals and they go through this toll all the time, and they've got something that beeps automatically in their car. And then you have me who needed to actually physically pay with a credit card. And one time I went into what was meant to be like the fast lane, and I was paying with my credit card, and the people behind me were like tooting, and you could see them, they're like, oh, like they were getting so pissed off. So like, do not do that. Another thing I noticed is that compared to New Zealand, there were hardly any police on the road, hardly any traffic cops as we call them. In fact, I don't think I saw a single one. Just a cop whose main job is to patrol traffic and make sure that you're following and respecting the speed limit rules. And on that point, I didn't actually see many speed cameras either, surprisingly. Now, moving into driving into Paris, my gosh, on the way back to Paris, that was just hell. You're trying to get in, you know, like, you know when you've got 4 lanes on a road and you're in the left lane and you need to get all the way over into the right lane because you're about to turn, you'll be like indicating, saying like, indicating and signaling to people like, I need to get over, I need to move. And they just avoid eye contact with you. They do not let you in. Now I can see why they say that Parisian drivers are assholes, because they were really, really mean. They just don't let you in. You have to kind of force your way in. Very aggressive. If there's, you know, if you're stopped at a set of lights and it goes green like that, in that instant, like literally people will be like beep, 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 like whoa, okay, like you almost have to start going before the light turns green. They're so aggressive. And there are motorcyclists everywhere, and they're almost worse than the drivers, because they're coming between the traffic, and they're coming from like your blind spot and you don't even see them, and they're so confident on their bikes. And honestly, if they knew what kind of drivers you had on the road, I'm like, I wouldn't be that confident if I were you. And they can come out of nowhere and they cut in front of you, and the motorcyclists just add a whole nother layer to the mix. I think the thing that surprises me the most about Parisians driving is that they have zero sympathy. I would hate to be someone learning to drive in the city, because if you need to take like a split second to try and figure out which direction you're meant to be going in, if you accidentally got into the wrong lane and you need to quickly, you know, get over to the other lane, like they're not helping, they're not going to have it, you know. You're just sort of like, you look at them like, please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I just need to get in, and they're like, oh la la. A lot of swearing as well on the roads in Paris. A lot of merde, putain. You can't always hear it, but you can definitely see it happening. There are a lot of circumstances, let's say, in Paris that cause people to get pissed off. So yeah, what an experience. Overall, honestly, when I handed back my keys to the agency, I was like, take them, I don't want to drive anymore. But I think the cities were definitely the most stressful experience, and I'm just not used to them. And driving in the open roads, it was really easy. I'm glad that I've done it. I'm glad that I can say that I've, you know, driven hundreds of kilometers in France, that I've driven around Paris, that I made it happen, and that I'm still alive. But yeah, quite the experience. Have you guys ever driven anywhere that was completely different and was really hard or really interesting for some reason? Let me know down below. If you guys have any video requests, things that you'd like to hear about, certain experiences, life in France, this kind of thing, please let me know. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video every Wednesday on the Not Even French channel. A bientôt!